The Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is in a German hospital now after Russian medical officials delayed allowing his transport out of the country, saying he was too ill to travel. Navalny has been in a coma since Thursday, where he is believed to have been poisoned while on a flight from the Siberian city of Tomsk to Moscow. And as with several other prominent critics of Vladimir Putin, suspicions are high that the Russian state is behind the poisoning, as it has been a preferred method of Putin allies to silence critics. Leaders around the world have spoken out about the apparent attacks. Most leaders. One has been notably silent. I'll give you a second to guess who it is. Yup, Donald Trump. Trump hasn't offered even basic concern over a prominent dissident being poisoned, regardless of whether or not it was at the behest of the Russian leader. But then Trump hasn't been too concerned about intelligence that suggests that Russians may have been paying for the Taliban to kill actual American fighters in Afghanistan, or that the Russians interfered in the last election, or a new report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that the Russian officials may be interfering in this election that is 72 days away. So why concern yourself with just another Russian dissident? Well, my next guest has himself been a target, having been poisoned twice, once back in 2015, again in 2017. He writes in a Washington Post op-ed that it's imperative for the world to take notice and take action against these political assassination attempts and to speak out, saying, quote, "It is much easier to commit a crime in silence than in the spotlight. I am living testimony to that. A strong stance from world leaders on both sides of the Atlantic will help ensure that Russian authorities allow Navalny's doctors to do their job." I'm joined now by Russian opposition politician, Vice President of the Free Russia Federation, Vladimir Kara-Murza. Vladimir, you write in the Washington Post this week, the official diagnosis in your poisonings from the hospital was toxic action by unidentified substance, meaning in plain language, poisoning by an unknown source. Multiple organ failure, brain swelling, and a prolonged coma follows. Sounds very familiar. Both times, doctors told my wife I had about a 5% chance to live. So the good news is that with Navalny now in a German hospital where the German doctors seem to think he was poisoned, there is some chance he may be able to recover. You, of course, were treated in Russia, and they did save your life.
They did, and I'm going to be eternally grateful to that I did make those 5%. But you're absolutely right in what you said a few minutes ago, that poison really has been a preferred, a favorite tool of security services back since Soviet days, but this practice has really proliferated since Vladimir Putin came to power. And there's a long and growing list of political opponents, independent journalists, foreigners they don't like, those they perceive as traitors, who have encountered these mishaps or accidents or poisonings. And some have been fortunate enough to survive, as I was, and as I hope to God Alexei Navalny will be. Others were less fortunate. Yuri Shakachykin, an investigative journalist and opposition lawmaker, died a horrible death in Moscow in 2003 from what certainly was deliberate poisoning. But, this is a method that's designed, I think, to give the Kremlin plausible deniability, because every time something like this happens, Kremlin spokespeople shrug their shoulders and say, how do we know it's poisoning? Where is your proof? Now, that is, of course, a question that is designed to have no answer, because proof is supposed to come from investigations that Russian authorities refuse to allow. Both times I was poisoned, my lawyer and I went to the Russian Investigative Committee, which is the top law enforcement body in Russia, to request criminal investigations. And, surprise, surprise, it's been more than 5 years now since my first poisoning, and we haven't even had a response from them.
Vladimir, sometimes that pressures investigations. Other times it's international pressure. One would expect, as you've written about, that you would get some response, even if it's a less than committal response from the U.S. president or high up in the U.S. government. But we're not even getting that. All Trump was able to say was, we are looking at it. We are looking at it, which is what he says about everything that is alleged to be bad.
Well, as I said, it's much easier to commit a crime in darkness than it is when the spotlight is on. And I want to use this opportunity to thank everybody on both sides of the Atlantic. And that includes congressional leaders in the United States on both sides of the political aisle, Democrats and Republicans, who have spoken out in the last several days. And I think this international spotlight is a major reason why Alexei Navalny is in safe hands now. I know in my case, international spotlight was very important. And, when the late Senator John McCain took to the Senate floor to speak about my case when I was lying in a coma in a Moscow hospital, I think it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's one of those people to whom I owe my life. So this spotlight was very important. As to silence from the White House, there is a historical term for this kind of policy, and that historical term is appeasement. And history has taught us, I think, without any doubt, that appeasing dictators simply does not work. And we don't even need to go back to distant historical precedents to talk about this. We can look at it with the regime of Vladimir Putin. You know, every American president of both parties since Putin was in power were appeasing him to in one way or another. You know, we all remember President Bush looking into Putin's eyes and praising him as a great reformer. President Obama declared a reset with Putin, and his administration tried to stop the Magnitsky Act from being passed, which is a law on targeted sanctions against human rights abuses among Russian officials. President Trump has equated what democratic nations do with what authoritarian regimes like Putin's do, and invited Putin to G8 summits, and he keeps talking about this for some reason. Appeasement does not work. The only effect, the only result of appeasement is emboldening dictators and making their excesses and their abuses even worse. And coming back to the situation with Alexei Navalny, by the way, poison is a preferred method, but it's not the only one. This week marked 2,000 days, more than 5 years, since Boris Nemtsov, the leader of the Russian opposition, was literally gunned down in front of the Kremlin in Moscow. And to this day, the Russian government continues to protect those who organized and masterminded it. So I think it is very important to say that this impunity will not last forever. Putin is not going to be in power forever. And those people who do these things will have to face responsibility in a democratic Russia, I have no doubt. But for now, in the West, including in the United States, I think it is very important that there should be no more talk of resets, no more talk of any kind of overtures or invitations to summits or any kind of other appeasement tactics towards a regime that speaks with its political opponents in the language of poisons and bullets.
Vladimir, I don't know if there's any luck with that happening in the next 72 days, but this administration seems quite committed to its policy of appeasement. We're glad you're here. We'll continue to keep a light on Navalny and continue to cover this. Thank you for joining us, sir. Vladimir Kara-Murza is a Russian opposition politician who has been poisoned twice. He's the vice president of the Free Russia Foundation.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.